Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on a podcast with Doddle. And thank you so much for taking our time on this early Friday morning. But before we start kind of pushing you all those questions which we want to learn you from, we would like to, if you could take 1 or 2 minutes of your time and introduce to our audience your journey so far, your superb journey so far, especially in media and publishing industry, and your contributions and a bit of your insights.
Thank you, Rishikesh, for inviting me to Dawdle. It's an honor. I have had a long career, as you know. For the audience, I have now 30 plus years of experience, large part of it being in India. I started in sales and marketing with the Godrej Group, and then I have worked in a slew of advertising companies. And finally, with Lentas, I was heading the direct marketing division in Bombay. From there, I moved to The Economist in India. The Economist is a magazine, as you know, based out of London. I started actually setting up the India operations. I was the MD here, and the focus was to grow subscriptions as well as advertising, because India has ads, still has ads, which is interesting. And then after 3-4 years of reasonable success, we grew quite rapidly. We did very well. We became the fourth largest subscription market in the world of The Economist. Post that, I was made the MD of circulation for Asia with the mandate of growing Asia, which worked very well. For about 2 years, we were growing at double digit. And then there was a need for The Economist to tackle a very basic question. At that time, Eric Schmidt, Dr. Eric Schmidt of Google was on our board. And he pushed the board to ask questions about our future as to what the technology changes that were going on with Facebook, Google, all the others that were coming in, Apple coming into various areas of news also. How are we going to survive, and what is going to be our future strategy? So in their collective wisdom, my CEO and the board thought that I may be the right person to address that. So I moved to London as the chief strategy officer, a role that wasn't existing before. It was fantastic. I was thrown into what I didn't realize was soon going to be called digital transformation. And I was heading that function for the chief strategy officer role till 2017 end. It was fascinating because that was when you're doing a job with a line function, you're focused on, my focus was growing subscriptions, what's happening in Hong Kong, what's happening in Singapore, what's happening in Tokyo. That's all we focused on. Brand campaign, what's the campaign going on? Is this going well? Measurement, this, that. You tend to sometimes lose focus of the macro. And when I moved to the role, I realized that the industry is facing a tremendous amount of blockages going forward. There were challenges that were huge, and I won't say we solved all of them, but I think we managed to make the Economist a slightly better place than it was. We started off on the digital transformation journey. We got into areas that we hadn't got into before. We created a metrics, North Star metric for the transformation, called it RWL. Reading, watching, and listening. Now, what was that? If you think about it, 10 years back, I'm talking about 2014, the focus of most legacy publishers was the written word, right? Yes, there were some people doing a little video, some people doing some podcast, but not really focused on that. Written word was everything. So our entire audience, if you measured it, including our print as well as digital, essentially was a reading audience. And at that time, it was about 10 million odd. And I realized that, if you are going to live in the future, watching, that is video, and listening is very important. Now, interestingly, The Economist always had a very interesting feature which not many people realize outside. If you were not a subscriber, you didn't realize. Every article of The Economist, since the time I joined, had an audio version.
Yes.
And it was something that was a lot of money was being spent. So we focused on podcast, we focused on video, but we also focused on the new channels that were coming up. That means Facebook, Google, then Snapchat came, then Apple started showing interest in news. And my job and my team's job was to focus on outside. Our strategy was strengthen the core and luckily for us, we were always a subscription-led company, but advertising was very large when I started this role. So we said we must focus on subscriptions, our direct relationship with our subscribers, grow that business, strengthen that. But at the same time, see what these guys are up to. What is Dr. Schmidt's company going to do to us, and what is Facebook going to do to us, and what does Apple want in their news? So we had a fantastic time trying to engage with the industry, with the new technology platforms. Whereas very clearly we knew that we had to strengthen our brand. That is what is going to stand and save us in the future. So that is where it was, and I left. It was very good and successful, and the Economist, thankfully, has still profitable, still around, still doing 1.25 million subscribers this year. All good. And after I left The Economist, I have been in India before and after COVID. Before COVID, I was chilling a bit. I had a few ideas to start on the startup side. Didn't work out, as it does with a lot of ideas. Post the COVID, I got into consulting, and I've been consulting in India and a bit in UK and the US. Outside India has been primarily in my space, which is media and publishing. In India, it's slightly wider. I help largely SMEs and MSMEs unlock growth, because that's where I realize I add the most value. They really need help on the marketing side, and that's where I focus on, help them unlock growth, come in and act like a fractional CMO. Is that the word that is being used now?
Yeah.
As a temporary CMO, and come in, help put the strategy in place, put the marketing plan in place, hiring people if required, training them, and usually work with companies between 6 months to 1 year, depending on the need of the company and its maturity. And that's what I do now.
That is great, sir. That's a great journey. And I will kind of pick your mind on the first question that we have, is that you have witnessed the publishing and media industry go through a massive disruption,
Yeah.
especially after this coming of the platform like Google, Facebook, Apple, taking over the distribution piece. In your hindsight right now, if you think,
Hmm.
what technology interventions could publishers would have adopted earlier to stay ahead of that shift?
It's a question that is still important to think about right now. Okay. After 10 years of my journey with The Economist, when I started with them, is that one thing that a lot of people make mistakes about is called the shiny object syndrome, right?
Mm.
Just because you have a new technology doesn't mean you go crazy about it. First of all, you have to think about the business model that you have taken up, and what are the things that are critical to that business model to be profitable in the future and continue to grow, and hence then what technology is required, right?
Yes.
Unless you come from a strategic mindset, see, if think about it from outside, there is the New York Times, there is the Economist. For a person, not both are newspapers in a sense, both are digital, both are in the space of news, but believe me, there is nothing common to them in their business model. So what the invitee has to do to survive and grow, which they've done brilliantly.
Yes.
At one time, around the time that I went to London, and before that when I was in Asia, they were not doing well at all. In 2013, NYT was struggling. They took a hard look at themselves. They created what's called the innovation report. Fantastic report. I learned a lot from that, which they did a hard looking inside, and then they came up with the 3-4 things that they will do. For the Economists, the model is very different. We are focused, you could call it a niche publication, and we can never be 20 million subscribers. Like the New York Times can aspire to that, but we definitely can be 3 to 4 million. There is no, that much scope is there. The Economist. So when I looked at that technology, I said there are some common themes that I can tell you about that we should have done and the industry should have done.
Yes.
We were lucky that we have had subscription based. Most of the industry was ad based, right?
Yes.
So one of the big things that we could have used technology for better was to build better understanding and relationships with our customers. But today, if you look at that, people will tell you first party data. Everybody talks about let's get first party data. What is first party data? Is getting to know your customers better. That is the core of business, right? You should know your customers better. I think we could have used technology to do that much better. Today, people are starting. I think the whole thing about first party data has started now in 2020, 2021, but it should have been much 10 years before that, right? That is one of the things that I think is very important. The other thing is that what the Economist did and the NYT did and a few others did, like the Financial Times, like the Wall Street Journal, is that people should have taken a leaf out of our books and said, let's move to subscriptions much faster than they did. That does not mean that you had to give up your advertising part of the game. We had advertising, very, very large amount of advertising, but that is something that people fail to see. They thought, and that is where the platforms came and blinded a lot of people. So when you saw that, okay, I've got Facebook and I'm getting, my traffic has gone mad and I'm growing, my traffic has grown 5x in the last 3 months. I'm getting more ads coming in, everything else, you lost your senses. The industry lost its senses,
Yeah.
forgot the basics, and said, okay, this is it, the gold mine, let's mine it. They forgot that gold mines also run out of gold, and it's a fact. We never lost focus of the fact that we have to be on the platforms. We have to take advantage of the search, Google search, and we have to take advantage of Twitter. In the initial years, Twitter is not so much for news anymore, but initial years, Twitter was very strong and Facebook was very strong. So we took advantage, but we always made sure that we didn't forget that our subscriptions is our bread and butter. That is what will be our strength. And our biggest investment by far was in subscription marketing. So that's the other thing that I think we could have done cleverly from a technology perspective, instead of just giving away our content in mass and posting them everywhere and letting Google crawl us and take everything, we could have, in hindsight now, when I see what advances is going on, it was possible even then that we could have thought of using APIs. We would have focused more on syndication, right? We had syndication, but it was only for papers and newspapers across the world. But if you had approached this whole point of view, and there were clues there, we were close to it, because when Apple News came out, we were the first brand on Apple News from the news industry. We worked a strategy with editorial that we are not going to let Apple News take everything that we have. So we negotiated with them and we told them that every week we will give you X number of pieces of content, which we will choose. And we used to do that manually. Now think about it. Now in today's world, that you would laugh as to say, what do you mean manually? I say it was actually that level.
Yeah.
But that thought was there in our head. If we had only used technology and said, let's focus on this, let's try and make sure that if people want our content, we let them and we do deals. Let's make it easy on us and do it digitally through APIs. And then let's negotiate with everybody who wants content. Other newspapers in the rest of the world, like today in India, the Mint has a relationship with the Economist, and you can read a lot of articles in the Mint here in India. Business Standard has with WSJ currently, and so on and so forth. We could have played on that and focused on that as a revenue stream. It may have become very strong today, and also would have given the industry and the Economist and the NYT a pre-planned strategy to take on what's happening now, which is Gen AI. Okay, so when OpenAI and Gen AI, now today, what happened with search was, we all know. What happened with Facebook, we all know. The same thing is happening with AI. So that is the third thing that I think we could have done.
That is very insightful, sir, actually. And you're absolutely right, sir. I've seen economists being there, like, tough and thin. Like, there has been very less impact on the business.
Have you ever heard of a journalist being sacked in The Economist in the last 10 years?
I have never heard.
They haven't. So that's the point. When your business model is well thought through and strong, we have, I don't know how much The Economist has today. I would guess around 200 journalists. The NYT has 2,000 journalists. There's a business model difference. And one of the reasons why The Economist is still profitable and growing is because the model has been thought through. Anyway, go on.
And once you say subscription, sir, it also means that economists knew that content is their bread and butter. It's the first thing that should come, because people will subscribe only when your content is good.
Right.
But when somebody's business model is like ad driven only,
Yeah.
say, they will start focusing more on the traffic rather than on the content. And that's why what you said, the journalists were
That's
not
true.
being.
That's true. So a lot of people, like, the if you remember the time that this whole madness was going on, the Facebook madness, there were businesses created to only feed Facebook's
Yes.
algorithms. The most famous is BuzzFeed, right? And BuzzFeed was seen as something that will destroy all legacy publishers like The Economist and everyone, because they will become so big, blah, blah. You know how that ended. It didn't end well, right? Yeah.
What it's so next topic is on, the personalization part. Is that how do you see AI driven personalization and recommendation engines changing the future of subscription marketing?
Oh, yeah. That is really the area where there's a lot and lot of potential. See, the thinking has always been there. Okay.
Hmm.
When we were in the economist and marketing, we used to think about so, if you take a step back for 5 minutes, if you understand the subscription business, it's a very simple business to understand. If you think of an analogy. Now, I don't know, Rishikesh, you're much younger than me, but when I was in school in class 9 and 8 and 9, we had this maths problem. There is this pole, 9 feet pole. There's this monkey going up the pole,
Yes.
right? It goes up 2 feet, comes down 1 feet. How many jumps will it take to reach the top? Simple, right? Now imagine that pole has a little bit of grease on it also. Okay. That is the subscription business. You grow and you slip. What do you slip? Because people churn. And the grease is the various things that you have set up in your system, which will make you slip more or less. Okay. And the job of subscription marketing and people who are in the game is to understand that it's not just about acquisition. You can make far more money if less people leave than you will acquire. So imagine the subscription marketing is a game of going as a monkey. I call it my subscription monkey. It goes up a greased pole and it slips down. Our job is to make it go up and keep it there and then make it go up again. Now if you think about that, what is there? There is acquisition, there is retention broadly. Then there is, of course, value addition. So once a customer likes your brand, has been with you for 2-3 years, you want to sell him more things. So that is expansion. So these are the three ways you can make money. Right now, in terms of technology, once you have paid, say it costs 5 times to 6 times more to retain a customer than to acquire a customer. You are in this business, how expensive acquisition is becoming. Costs in Facebook is going up. It's all kinds of pressures coming in. So if you're acquiring customers at a very high cost, you should pay and spend far more attention and money
Yes.
on retaining the customer. And that is where technology can play a great role, because you've now got this customer, you have you know everything about him, you know where he stays, possibly if you're doing print. But even if it's digital, you can figure out through your through digital means where the person stays, who is he, what is his age, all that can be done. You can continue to collect by incentivizing, making the first party data richer and richer, getting more data from the person. Once you have that solid database, what do you do with it? If your whole objective is to reduce churn, that's where technology plays a huge role. And coincidentally, Rishikesh, last month, I have spoken to 3 churn management startups, one in Amsterdam, one in Denmark, and the third one in the US. All they're doing is focusing on this part of the publishing business or the subscription business. How to predict who is going to leave before he leaves, and and just not that, what should we then do to make him stay? And that is a huge area where artificial intelligence, Gen AI, whatever you want to call it, machine learning has huge potential. Earlier also, we had started using these things to predict churn. Hotel industry has used churn management for a long time, or predicting who will come back to us and so on and so forth. But in the subscription business, I think the biggest gain can be the fact that you now have first party data. Hopefully, you know who your customers are. Use technology to manage churn. The second thing is, how do you make your communication more efficient? Now, this is not to do with just subscriptions, the entire marketing industry. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. How can you personalize data at a larger scale using technology? How can you speed up your testing? Earlier, you could do 2 tests because everything was manual. You want to test 3 creatives, you have to get the agency to make it. It will take them 3 weeks to make three creatives, like 1,000 creatives.
Yes.
Technically. So that is the other area technology should be used for. Again, it's generic. But if you talk about the subscription business, the biggest gain is making sure your first party data is really strong. What can technology do to help that and make that data stronger? And second, use it for churn management. And third, I talked about expansion, trying to do using technology to test new concepts with your existing audience, see what they might like, not like. So those kind of things. So these are the areas I think which people are already thinking about. A lot of work is going on. Startups have come up. This one of them I think was a YC23 startup. So the work is happening there.
Absolutely great, sir. And the next one is around content creation, sir. With all this generative AI coming in, you see it impacting content creation, customer engagement. Right now, you see a lot of the posts on LinkedIn are also like, generated through AI, and it has become very boring. Like, you come to know about it. So how do you see this generative AI thing is impacting content creation, engagement, and monetization models, especially for publishers and membership businesses?
See, it's a very simple thing. The reason some publishers have survived is because they have absolutely superb content, quality of content. I use a lot of AI. Okay.
Yes.
Sometimes it's tempting to not bother and just cut,
Yes.
paste and put it on there, but it doesn't work. It is, I think some people say that the whole world has been destroyed because internet AI slop is filling the internet, right? And if the logic is that if it's all AI is slop, are the training also happening on slop? Then what is the quality of the Gen AI output? Blah blah blah. So I think if I was at the Economist today, I would be smiling because it's such a huge advantage for someone who is creating quality content. You have to double down on it. That is your advantage. No time in the future can original content be created by an LLM. The logic is it has to be based on something that already exists.
Yes.
So if you create original content, it's your advantage. That is why people are paying, tie-ups are happening, people are paying lots of money to publishers of quality, right? I think that general content creation, which is by creators, by people like us who want to build thought leadership, is really becoming a bad place. It's difficult. It's just full of, LinkedIn is unbearable sometimes.
Yes.
But what is the same thing that applies for publishers applies for creators and people like us. If you can do original content, you will stand out. So last 3 months I've been doing an experiment. Every 1 week I produce content created by AI. But my idea and thought and my ability to connect dots, but I let the AI write it. And 1 week I'll post 3 things which are AI written. And the next week I post stuff which I write completely myself. The difference is ridiculous. X is the difference in what the algorithm gives you against crap content. And my content is not crap. If you read it, I take out all the M dashes, I take out all the semicolons. Everyone is doing all the clever things, right?
Yes.
But I can see that it can pick up. And my content, if you don't look at it through the lens of AI, is not bad. It's my idea is finally mine. It's not a cut paste from somewhere. But when you write from your real heart and your idea comes through your words, there is no replacing it. The whole thing is I write a lot about churn management, subscription marketing, and people like it. Some read it. I write about business models. Last Sunday, as a part of this test, I wrote one piece about a visit to a cafe in Bombay with my daughter, which struck in my head because they didn't let my daughter use the laptop. And I said, Kaisa cafe? And then it struck me that there are people who are not on their phones. They're actually talking to each other. Okay. And I realized that they have actually done the thing that is coming into vogue. Communities are coming back. People want to meet people. And by banning use of iPads and thing, they're sending a signal out that we want you to come with your friends and talk.
Yes.
Okay, no, that's not the story. So I wrote this article on this. I loved it. And I wrote about how this whole trend is happening and linked it to marketing a bit. That has been my best performing post. And to test the algorithm and the logic of people who give advice on LinkedIn posts, posted it on a Sunday, the worst day to post on LinkedIn. Right?
Yes.
Sunday, 12 or 11:30 or 12 o'clock, I posted it saying, this is the worst possible test for a post on LinkedIn, right? 27,000 impressions and running on a Sunday post. There's this whole, I guess it is the business of some people that they have to do this. But if you have something really good to write about, write once a week, write once in 2 weeks, but write from your heart, write something which is connects with your business. If you're looking at it from a business perspective, or your profession, if you're looking at it from a career perspective, write from your heart. And I think what people are really craving for is connecting to real life experiences. So why did this cafe post do well? Think about it. Because it's an insight from what's happening in the marketplace, which you cannot get from doing anything else. It has to be experienced. And that is what is valuable. So I've been now thinking about, when I go out, I keep my eyes and ears open to spot something new, even if it is a one paragraph post. If you spot something which is interesting, write about it. So, in my opinion, the quality of writing by the LLMs is improving, no doubt about it. My favorite is Claude. I use a lot of ChatGPT, and I like the fact that they are very organized. What it helps me do is find gaps. So, if I've got a topic and I write to them and say, I'm going to do like I did. Let me give you a real example. I am talking to Rishikesh, who is from Doddle. He has sent me these questions. These are my points that I will write. Is there anything that I'm missing out? And like the first question you asked me about technology, it told me that think about how you will get more business from your existing customers. I hadn't thought about it. So that is the use. Now I said, yeah, that makes sense. Why didn't I think about it? So that is the use as a very good friend, as a guide, and sometimes an expert to help you in your job. Beyond that, if you make that your only source of creating content, you're dead. Yeah. There's no hope.
Now, very quickly, we'll go to the next topic, sir. Is that you have seen both the sides of the things. One, you have seen the classical brand building thing which was done, and now we are also seeing aggressive digital marketing.
Yes.
So how should businesses strike a right balance between the traditional marketing wisdom, which is there, and AI enabled automation?
Fantastic. I'll keep it short, but I'll tell you one thing. Again, like I answered before. First, if you have thought through your strategy and you're clear, and I'll explain this through an example, then the question about marketing breadth comes afterwards. So when I was given the job to run Asia, I said, while I'm the entire Asia from India, while I am from Asia,
Yeah.
I am an Indian. I don't know anything about people in Japan.
Yes.
What I did was I said, okay, luckily for us, we have the Economist has an Economist intelligence unit, which is called the EIU, which does custom research for companies. So I said, I paid them and I told them, give me a discounted rate, but I want you to create an index for me of Asian countries. So they quickly created along with me. I described some attributes which are important for subscribers. They figured out macro attributes, points were picked up, and we created an index. And they gave me three levels of focus. One top level, second level, third level. And I took the top level and I said, okay, once I got that I am going to focus on Hong Kong, Singapore, Melbourne, Sydney, Tokyo, and Seoul. That decision was first. Then came, what should I do in marketing? And then you have to think about, yes, what you are the original question. The fact that I have worked in across from what is called now, I don't know, the real world media to digital media, whatever you want to call it, I have the ability to see even in the new world, I am not closed to ideas of if you are coming from a consumer perspective. Now, let me concretize that. When we looked at Hong Kong, if you have been there or people know about it, is a small island, and the core of it is in one island where everybody works, right? Now, for the economists, a natural target audience, while that's not the only thing, because our target audience used to be, and still is, I guess, the curious individual, but the large part of it were office people, and a large part of it were banking people, because we were the economists, right? And the finance sector used to work in one part of Hong Kong. Now, in Hong Kong also, the interesting thing is people don't drive their own cars. Very few. Some do, very few. People use transport. It's a small place. Either they take a bus or they take taxis. Taxis are very popular. Short distances, you travel in taxis. Now, everybody is coming to that place, going back. Whether they're in a taxi, walking in their own car, they have to travel through those thin Hong Kong roads, which have these wonderful things, and I hope they still have. They have these trams, buses, big, tall buses, and they go on these tracks. So you know the route they will follow, and they have fantastic side display panels. So in the world of digital advertising, we took tram advertising in Hong Kong. Okay. And that really worked. I'll give another example how your mind has to be open in marketing and strategy and businesses. Why did I say Sydney and Melbourne? When we looked at Australia, I said, man, this has got it's such a big country. There are 5 cities here, there. Where do we focus? We did a lot of research. I tell my team, you research everything. Tell me some strange facts about this 5 cities. One boy came up and said, sir, I have this strange data. Do you know? I just read that this is 2010 to 12. 1 million passengers travel between Sydney and Melbourne by air every year. I said, what on earth? Why so? Because those are the two main business cities. It's like Bombay and Delhi. And my bulbs started going off. I said, that is my audience. So I said, that's it. Just take over the 2 airports. That was our idea. And that's all we did. So every city was different. Now, all this comes from having worked across various mediums. Yes, and not only have experience in Facebook algorithms. I have nothing against them. I have some brilliant young people who have worked for me, still work for me on part-time, who are fantastic. But they don't have the exposure some people have across and breadth, and that's very useful to have. And I force young people to say, go out. Yes. Meet actual consumers. So when I put my team in place at The Economist in Bombay, they can all tell you now they're all doing very well. 5 kids. They were kids. My average age was some 23 or something, or 24. 5 people we had, no fancy MBAs, graduates, all hungry with attitude, including me. For the first 3 months, every weekend, our job was based on the place where you stay. You go to the biggest bookstore on Saturday morning. Why? Because Saturday morning, our magazines must be on the rack. They come from Singapore on Thursday night, Friday, delivery. It has to be put on the racks every morning. So I used to go to Cam's Corner from my place where I stay and go to the Cam's Corner shop and stand there and make sure that the copy. So after some time, the store guys realize that ye to roz aane wala hai. So you better be ready for them. And so they started putting our copies first. It is to go online. And then we used to stay, have a coffee and watch. Someone picks up a Fortune. Someone picks up a Forbes. I used to gently go up and my team used to go up and ask them, how long have you been reading this? Can I ask you a few questions? And do actually talk to people who read magazines. In today's world, every one of us are geniuses sitting on our laptops selling products. How many marketers who they call themselves marketers, very good at their jobs because they know the algorithms, have they talked to a single customer of a product they're selling? And our rule was every week. And this was so serious that it was reviewed on Monday. Yes. Not reviewed. We used to sit around and drink coffee and talk about our experiences. At least if you imagine 5 people talking to 2 people every week, you got 10 consumer insights. That's enough for you to get a gauge of what's working. So some people told us your pricing is crazy. I love the magazine, but I can't afford it. Business India or Business Today is available for 20 rupees. Yours is 180 rupees. It was. Okay. And then you said, okay, so if you're selling the magazine, what is the insight there? You really have to sell the value. You have to figure out how will people appreciate the value. So then you started thinking and we said, how will we can't do advertising and tell people the value. So the simple solution to that was, hey, we have to get people to read the magazine. So our entire strategy in India was to create awareness, drive people to the website. That's it. 1 KRA, 1 measurement tool. Yes. How do we grow our website visitors? 600% in 5 years. That's it. Your goal was met. People read, people like, some of them will. We just need a tiny percentage to convert. Yes. So, yeah, having cross-channel or whatever you call it, people call it omni-channel, more cross-channel, all kinds of fancy words. Yes. But essentially keeping your mind open to possibilities, even today. a hoarding can be more effective than a campaign. Just because you can't measure it doesn't mean anything. Okay.
Great. Now, on the last question, sir, like,
Yes.
if you look at the next decade, what are those emerging technologies or business model innovations, especially in the subscription and membership economy?
You know, uh, on this one, I think that I once heard this from a very, very interesting man. So all of us know it. The great Amazon founder. We all love him. We have seen what he has done. History has taught us so many things that he has taught us. He's having fun now, which is good for him. And I saw an interview, Fireside with him, where he said, one of the strangest things that I have encountered is when I meet people, is that they ask me, what's going to change in the next 10 years? What I am surprised is that no one asks me what's not going to change in the next 10 years. He said, I built Amazon based on what will not change. So he said, which customer 10 years from now will tell me that I want costlier products? Who will tell me I want my products to come slower to me? Who will tell me I want less choice on Amazon? He said, that is it. Those are the three things which will never change, and we are building for that. And you can see that clearly focused build on those three factors and made Amazon what it is. So when you ask me, what is the future? What will happen? Nobody knows, dude. Rishikesh, no one knows. You listen to as many podcasts, no one knows what's going to happen. What you should try to think about your business and what's not going to change in the next 10 years. If you can crack that, build on that, you'll be fine.
This was superb. I think we ended it on a superb note. And we should rather, think of things which are not going to change in the coming decade and build on top of it, because those are the first principles or building blocks of
Yeah.
any.
Also, what are you going to do by thinking about, these geniuses are thinking about it. They've all been to MIT. They've all been to they can't figure it out as to what will happen in the next 2 years.
Yes.
You and I have no chance. So let's let them do what they're doing. We should just concentrate on saying, I know this is what Doddle will stand for in 10 years. And these are the principles on which first principles on which I'll build it.
Yes.
For me, I've decided to be a solo entrepreneur now. I'm going to build my next 10 years based on these principles. And if those are correct, and that's what the consumers like or value, you are fine. And then whatever technology comes, use it cleverly.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. I hope this session will be very insightful for all the industry leaders in a similar segment who will be watching it.